Hello everyone, this is Fine from Tech Gaming Villa. Today I'm going to talk about the two TV, the Samsung 8K QLED Q800T and the LG CX OLED, which is a 4K OLED TV. You see, the left side is Samsung 8K QLED TV 800T, and the right side is LG CX OLED, which is a 4K TV. We will see actually how good actually 8K TV is, but not OLED, it's QLED panel, and the right side is a 4K TV but OLED panel. The LG OLED TVs have always been good, great even. The LG CX OLED truly took things to a new level as a host of small but important improvements added up to a TV experience movie fans will struggle to tear their eyes from. LG equipped with the CX with the Alpha A9 Gen 3 processor for better upscaling than its predecessor, and outside it had 440 Gbps HDMI 2.1 ports. For a time, it was the best TV money you could buy. If you see the LG CX OLED performance, OLED TVs have always been particularly well suited to standard dynamic range HDR technology. So it's no surprise to see the LG CX looking stunning with every SDR Blu-ray or broadcast. Colors are rich and vibrant on LG CX, but also nuanced and balanced. Contrast is pretty much perfect, as OLED's ability to have every single pixel produce its own light brings out shadow details and dark tones with a degree of intensity and authenticity LCD screens can't match. The color and contrast performance are both founded on a spectacular black level performance that's free of the grayness and localized clouding problems you get with pretty much all LCD TVs. Just as importantly, bright highlights of mostly dark images retain a consistent level of intensity. There's no sacrificing of any of their brightness to keep the dark areas around them looking neutral, as you can often see with premium LCD TVs that use local dimming. In short, the OLED, LG CX, depth touch, and per pixel light reproduction takes out every drop of color quality from SDR content. And with high quality SDR sources such as a good Blu-ray, you may well be amazed at just how much the limited color and light range of SDR can deliver when a TV is good enough to unlock it at all. LG has also improved its upscaling, presumably thanks to the new AI-based upscaling engine introduced by LG's new third generation Alpha 9 chipset. There's a cleaner, more consistent and more detailed look to HD content after it's been converted to this screen's native 4K resolution. The improved upscaling is particularly effective in the most detailed areas of HD pictures, which look noticeably cleaner and more densely textured than they did last year. In fact, in these areas, at least LG's upscaling is as good as anything I've seen from any 4K TV today. The peerless per pixel light control of OLED technology joins with improved LG picture processing to make the OLED SDR HD pictures a joy to behold. It's the improvement it brings the 4K and HDR images that really count in the premium TV world. For starters, the LG CX black level performance improves on 2019's LG C9 OLEDs in two ways. First, black levels get even deeper and retain that depth and neutrality more consistently. Just occasionally, a really extreme dark shot can suddenly appear infused with a low-level yellowish gray tone. This is faint though and doesn't occur very often at all. Secondly, the CX combines its improved black levels with more shadow details and dark color shading subtlety than last year's B9s. So basically, the CX handling of black level and dark scenes combines the best bits of both the B9 and C9, and the results are beautiful. The LG CX also suffers less with noise in dark areas and much less with exaggerated compression blocking artifacts when viewing dark scenes on some streamed shows than previous LG OLEDs have. The blocking has been reduced too, without the loss of shadow detail that was created by LG's early attempts to fix this widely publicized blocking phenomenon. The LG CX also improves on its predecessor at the opposite end of the brightness spectrum. For while it doesn't actually measure any brighter than last year's models using an HDR test signal, just over 800 nits in vivid mode or 784 and 760 nits in the more natural standard and cinema modes. Side-by-side comparisons reveal that bright peaks in HDR pictures look punchier on the OLED than they did on the OLED C9 model. It's not a night and day difference, but it's enough to make HDR pictures look more intense, expressive, and realistic. Taking off local contrast, the way the LG CX really can put the brightest pixels of an HDR image right next to the darkest ones without any sort of compromise. So unlike with LCD TVs, contrast-rich scenes don't suffer with such distracting inconsistencies as sudden fluctuations in overall brightness, heavy dimming of small standout bright image elements, or obvious bands or halos of light around standout bright objects. The LG CX improves LG's color performance too. The enhanced brightness management, for instance, helps the brightest colors of HDR images retain a more natural look. Washes of color across the screen look more consistent. Color blends look more consistently subtle and nuanced, and more tonal subtly retained in the brightest picture areas. Native 4K picture look blisteringly sharp and detailed too, without the clarity looking forced or artificially, so long you avoid the vivid picture preset anyway. The detail doesn't take a heavy heat when there's motion to handle either. The LGCX latest motion processor, at least in its cinema clear setting, does a good job of reducing judder without causing the picture to either look too fluid or throwing up too many unwanted side effects. Very complex motions such as small objects moving within a panning image can still cause a few glitches. So AV enthusiasts will be pleased that tuning the motion processing system of finds the LG CX suffering less panel related judder than previous LG OLED generations. It boasts new picture modes. The filmmaker mode has arrived through a collaboration between the Ultra HD Alliance and movie creatives, and is designed to recreate on the TV the sort of settings creators use when mastering content. Broadly speaking, this means tuning many of the TV pictures processing tools off, resulting in pictures which some may find a little juddery and too dull to watch in a bright room. There's also not much different at all, in truth, between filmmaker mode and LG Cinema Home preset. Where filmmaker mode might become more interesting is if this starts carrying the flags needed to turn the LG CX's version of filmmaker mode on automatically, though I am yet to hear of any disc that carries such flags. The other new picture mode is Dolby Vision IQ. This is essentially a Dolby Vision mode that combines the extra HDR picture information and screen optimization elements of Dolby Vision HDR with an assessment of room conditions provided by a built-in light sensor. The idea being to adjust multiple aspects of the picture in real time to make sure the resulting image achieves a consistent look no matter how much your viewing conditions change. Note that LG doesn't actually level a picture preset. Dolby Vision IQ, the mode kicks in if you have both the Dolby Vision Cinema Home mode and LG's AI brightness feature active. The mode works well if the TV is in a fairly regular living room environment, where the TV is likely to get watched in a wide variety of lighting situations. In a dark dedicated movie room, though you won't need it. LG CX is not inevitably perfect. For instance, it doesn't support the HDR10 plus HDR system designed as a rival of Dolby Vision. It also doesn't miraculously overcome the brightness limitations associated with OLED technology, even though its outstanding local contrast compensates massively for that. There's still a little room for further improvement with its handling of near black imagery too, and its screen can be quite reflective of bright objects in your room. That said, LG CX is an excellent gaming display. In its game mode, it only suffers with a penny 13 millisecond of input lag, and unlike some LCD TVs, calling in its game preset doesn't lead to any obvious reduction in color and contrast performance. There's support for both automatic low latency mode switching and variable refresh rates too. The PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and next gen PCs can make use of the LG CX 4K 120Hz 4:4:4 and HDR support. Of course, as with any OLED TV, you are expected to take some care with what you watch on it to reduce the possibility of permanent image retention. In particular, try to avoid spending too long at any one-time watching content with bright logos or static bright image elements. On the other hand, if you see the Samsung Q800T, which is a QLED panel, it's an excellent premium TV that really can make its 8K difference count even with sub 8K content. The Q100T may be the cheapest 8K TV that Samsung is putting out on 2021, and therefore not the most highly specified, but its price point may be the best argument for getting an 8K television into your home. The relatively lower price point in 2022, which is affordable for many gamers, and it's understandable considering the 8K Q800Ts is a bit of an older model at this point, and those that want something a little more feature rich and up to date may want to check out the Q800T successor, the QN800A, which added mini LED backlighting for improved contrast and brightness control. If you see its HD or HDR performance, Samsung has introduced a new deep learning component to its AI picture processing for 2020 that's allowed to build a much more massive and effective database and picture knowledge. It can apply to its upscaling of sub 8K sources. The results are jaw-droppingly apparent even with HD sources. The effectiveness with which Samsung's new entry-level 8K set adds 31 million extra pixels to HD images while simultaneously eliminating source noise is phenomenal, provided you avoid the rather tepid movie preset. At least the upscaled HD image looks vastly more detailed and dense than they do in the standard HD form on an HD screen. In fact, they look more detailed and dense than they do on most 4K TVs, and than they did on Samsung's 2019 8K TVs. This upscaling improvement is critical, of course, given that for the foreseeable future, viewers will find themselves watching HD sources on even an 8K TV much more than they will find themselves watching native 8K. Samsung no longer provides a standard dynamic range to high dynamic range conversion system on its TVs, but it arguably doesn't need to, as its standard and dynamic presets are both capable of delivering HDR content with plenty of punch and dynamism without making them look unnatural or forced. The movie mode also provides purists with a relatively subdued, decently accurate image, while the natural picture preset offers a pretty effective halfway house between the movie mode's accuracy and other punchier presets. Contributing to the set's impressive HDR efforts is an outstanding black level performance that makes it easy to forget that you are watching an LCD TV. This is down to combination of the screen's full array with local dimming, lighting setup, and Samsung's new contrast boosting power ray distribution system, which shares power around the dimming zones more efficiently. There's pretty much no trace of the usual LED issues of backlight, clouding, or haloing around bright objects either, even in black bars above and below the picture. Having such inky blacks to bounce off helps the Q800T deliver rich-looking HDR colors, and its powerful processing and ample brightness ensures that there's a wealth of nuance within those color tones. There are a couple of caveats to the Q800T's mostly superb HD SDR efforts. First, the screen beams down bright objects a touch when they appear against a dark backdrop in a bid to keep distracting areas of clouding at bay. Second, the non-movie picture presets can cause a little black crash in shady corners, especially with the natural preset. Fantastic AI-driven upscaling does a better job of converting HD to 8K than you'd think possible, and contrast and color are both beautiful. With a claimed peak brightness of 2000 nits that it more or less measures up to, at least for short bursts, the Q800T is ready, willing, and able to get tons of impact and real-life dynamism from HDR images, at least where those HDR images are pretty uniformly bright. Also, because the Q800T can go so much brighter than most TVs, it holds on to more detail than most rivals in the brightest parts of aggressive HDR content, including movies mastered to 4000 nit peaks without sacrificing overall brightness levels. The Q800T retains startlingly deep black levels with HDR content too, despite HDR's much expanded brightness range. This is especially impressive when you consider that the local dimming only has 224 zones to work with rather than the 480 zones used in previous Samsung 8K TVs. The Q800T's upscaling trumps against the 4K content. As with HD sources upscaled, 4K looks considerably sharper and more textured looking than it did on Samsung's 2019 8K TVs. So much so, actually, that it's no surprise to discover that Samsung has tweaked the sub-pixel-based wide viewing angle technology it introduced last year to ensure it doesn't have as much of an impact on perceived resolution. This does mean that the Q800T can't be watched from as wide an angle as Samsung's 2019's 8K sets before black levels and color response diminish. But given that the main attraction of an 8K TV is surely its resolution, Samsung's tweak to viewing angle resolution balance seems entirely sensible. Again, the results of the Q800T's upscaling of 4K looks strikingly natural due to the processor's deep learning enhanced ability to distinguish between source noise and real source picture information before figuring out the look of the new pixels it's having to create. It's particularly good to see Samsung not falling into its old habit of over sharpening upscaled images using its default preset settings to the point where they become gritty and harsh. Watching 4K and 8K sources made it easy to appreciate the Q800T's impressive motion handling even without using any of the TV's available motion processing options. Camera pans and fast moving objects look detailed, sharp, and free of excessive judder. However, using the custom motion setting lets you take the edge of what little judder or blur there is without 24 FPS images starting to look processed, messy, or unnaturally smooth. Colors are little hit and miss. On the downside, they are not as richly saturated and vibrant as those of some other Samsung TVs, including 2020's 4K flagship Q95T and last year's Q90R. For the most part, Q800T's colors look more natural than the more heavily saturated tones of those other 4K Samsung models. The 8K models' improved processing means colors are also enjoy slightly more refinement. The Q800T's picture attributes are particularly well suited to its movie presets, without the flat black levels and yellow color tones that have tended to accompany previous generations of Samsung movie mode. Although it will be many moons before you will be watching much native 8K content, it should look outright spectacular when it eventually arrives on the Q800T. With this 8K test footage, predominantly natural scenes mastered by picture testing gurus Spears and Mansil, it consistently looked gorgeous, delivering in abundance the remarkably textures, sense of three-dimensional depth, and uncanny directness and naturalism that define the 8K experience. Its 8K pictures are noticeably sharper and just more 8K than those Samsung's 2019 models. The Q800T also excels in some ways as a gaming monitor. Its input lag, for instance, is remarkably low at barely 10 milliseconds with the game picture presets. Also, cool features are calling in a torch of motion smoothing processing at the cost of only a few extra milliseconds of lag, and raising the brightness of dark areas to make it easier to spot lurking enemies. The screen's brightness and contrast work well with game graphics too. The only issue is that the amount of picture processing and control Samsung has to turn off to hit the game mode's low input lag figure does reduce picture quality. That's especially noticeable when it comes to black level and general backlight control. So unless you are playing a particularly reaction-based game, you might prefer to use a tweaked non-game picture preset instead. The Q800T's other issue is that it dims bright edge objects that appear against a dark backdrop very aggressively at times in its bid to avoid backlight glooming, so much so that small bright objects against near black backdrops can start to actually look quite dull. The dimming is markedly less aggressive with the movie picture preset active, though the trade-off is that dark areas look rare, feeding the TV and HDR10 plus source marginally improves the dimming situation too. Finally, it's important to stress that the sort of extreme contrast content that causes the most distractingly heavy dimming on the 65-inch Q800T seldom appears with normal TV viewing and typically only crops up occasionally even during movies. Outstandingly high upscaling backs of brightness and some seriously impressive black levels make the Q800T a typically spectacular 4K HDR performer. The local dimming system can occasionally be very aggressive though. So if you compare this with LG CX OLED, I will say definitely LG CX looks better. It doesn't mean that 8K TV is better than 4K TV. The 4K OLED looks beautiful than this 8K QLED, I will say. So what do you think? Please write in the comments below. You will choose 4K OLED or 8K QLED TV. So that's it from now. If you like this video, please subscribe and press the bell icon for future notifications update. Thanks for watching.